this settlement gets approved and any of the rules get put in place, there's going to be a lot of things decided and deciphered. And I believe in innovation. And I believe that the people in all of us are super creative and innovative, and we're going to adjust and adapt. And there's so many things about this that are great. The disclosure, I loved yesterday what Anna Kalinsky said, and I just took hold of this, and it's become part of my own conversation, which is never let a seller or a listing agent determine the value of the service that you provide as a buyer's agent. Which is exactly what we've been doing. We have been allowing listing agents and sellers to determine what the value of the services are that we're providing to our clients as buyer's agents. And this is an opportunity for us to have that conversation and not do that anymore. Some people are already doing that. And so, this is going to be a disclosure conversation. We're gonna have to, so there's what we know, what we don't know, and then there's what can we do right now. So we know that there's a settlement proposed. It's not yet even been submitted, or certainly not approved. We know it's a 108-page document that the legal teams of all of the players are gonna go through and determine what we can and can't do based on this settlement if it is approved the way that it is written. We know that. What we don't know is, well, what's gonna happen to a VA buyer? Well, what's gonna happen when I have a buyer in June? Well, I've got a seller that wants to sell in August, and whenever we get to August, how am I gonna, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. We don't know. I don't know. And so.
Then why are you here?
Exactly. To give you hope and confidence. No. So we know certain things, we don't know certain things. And there are certain things that we need to absolutely be doing right now. And there are other things we can't even begin to think about how we're going to do it because we don't know yet. So what should we be doing right now? What we should be doing right now is being a student of, the NAR FAQs. Okay, so you should all have this by now, but you have to choose the outlets that you are listening to. So listen to NAR when they put something out. When they put out a 41-point frequently asked questions that gives you answers to frequently asked questions, you should read every single word of this document. When NAR puts something like that out, you should listen to it. You should read it. The things you should listen to: Keller Williams International, large legal team that represents your best interest going through all of this. And KWRI, Mark Willis and Gary Keller have put out a couple of emails since this hit on last Friday. On Monday at noon, there is a meeting, a live, I think it's gonna be, it's like a webinar. So there's a live webinar Monday at noon where Mark Willis and the executive team of Keller Williams is going to talk about it. Tune into that. It makes sense for you to dedicate that hour to hearing what the KWRI executive team thinks about what you should be doing.
The email is labeled KW Open House.
KW
Yeah,
Open
it's already
House,
went out this morning to everybody.
Monday at noon. You should be there. I'm going to be there listening to that. I'm reading what the legal team is putting out. I'm reading the FAQ. What you should not be listening to are the news headlines and the TikToks and the reels and all of those things which say that real estate agents are terrible, scum of the earth, and should never have been paid to begin with, and all of those crazy things. Another mindset thing that I want you to think of is there's a news cycle, and a news cycle is pretty short. And so, I mean, even like today or the last day or so, have y'all heard headlines or top news stories on this just in the last day or so? It's disappeared. It dropped on Friday. It was news cycle over the weekend, maybe into Monday, but they're on to the next story. They're on to the next story. So two things I know. One is that the news cycle is very fast and quick because they can't land on anything because they have one reason and one reason only that they're putting out headlines, and that's to sell advertising. And if they land on something that really doesn't have legs and doesn't have a lot of impact on most of America, they're not going to continue to bang that drum because it's not going to sell advertising. News cycle is short. The memory of Americans is pretty short. So you probably had some conversations over the weekend with people in your world, like, are you okay? Are you gonna be like, do you need a sandwich? Is there like, you need a job? Like, and so people heard the horrible news stories in your sphere of influence, and they probably asked you about it. You probably haven't been asked much about it in the last 24, 48 hours because the news cycle's over, people's memory's pretty short. So don't think that we're gonna live in the extreme amount of exposure to this thing that we had from Friday to Monday. From Friday to Monday, in our real estate world, there was an extreme amount of exposure to negative headlines. That's over. Get past that, then know what this thing is, know what your steps are, know how to talk about it. Here's the key thing I want you to understand and do. This is the you must do thing. You must 100%. 100%. Right? You must revamp or create a solid value proposition for buyer's agency. And you have to be so clear and confident on the value you provide and the charge for those services that you can sit across the table in your buyer consultation and you can do a consultation and present your services and defend the charge for those services, the fee that you charge. You have to do that because you've done that for sellers. So you probably have jam up and jelly tight listing presentation and all about why you charge them what you charge and all the services you provide and the things that differentiate you from the competition and all those things. But the buyer consultation and value proposition has been something like, I do these pretty cool things for you. And the great part about it is it's free to you because the seller pays my commission. And so you've been allowed to be weak sauce on your value proposition to buyer's agents. Not all of you have been, but we've been allowed to be that because we could just say, and the great part about it is it's free to you because the seller pays my commission. That conversation is going to go away. You very well may have many situations where there's a seller concession that pays your commission. That's great. But you're going to have to, at the buyer consultation, give a presentation of value, the cost for those services, and be able to be confident and defend them in your presentation. Questions about that?
Clients that you have come to the top of your head, that could be part of that value proposition, just a little bam, 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 that we can
I do,
have it already. And they're like, we're finding problems for you, writing up contracts for you, negotiating.
There's 150 I found something, there was 150 things that the buyer's agent does.
So this will get sent to you. So here are 14 value proposition points. And market knowledge, property search, negotiation, access to resources, guidance and advice, paperwork and documentation, representation, market analysis, property evaluation, due diligence, risk management, transaction management, problem solving, and post-purchase support. Those are 14 things that could be part of your value proposition. And then there are 8 things that are points of differentiation between you and the other agents. So other agents can provide those same valuable things. But what could be differentiators between you and another agent is market knowledge and expertise, communication skills, personalized service, attention to detail, proactive approach, reputation, networking, and connections, continuing education, and knowledge and professionalism. So these are things that are differentiators between you and other agents and good, solid value propositions. So this will get sent out to you so that you can build your value proposition. And then there's this too, which will get sent out to you. This is a paper put out by the National Association of Realtors, which is 179 ways that agents who are realtors are worth every penny of their compensation. So you may not adopt all 179 points, but now what I encourage you to do is to gather all of the information that you can muster around a value proposition, and then what do you do in your business, and what do you provide, and what are your specialties? This is your value proposition. Create the giveaway points, the presentation, your scripts and dialogues, and then your key objection handlers whenever you're making that presentation. You do those things and you're gonna be just totally fine. 179 things. This is objection handlers for buyer representation, the buyer's brokerage agreement. So this is a whole thing on this is just this is a collection of resources that I pulled together over the last few days, just saying, where are our resources? And what could I share with you that will help? This is another thing.
You have to have a chart and graph on there.
I have to. So the other thing is, this is from National Association of Realtors survey of a home buyer and seller. And so these are the key things that buyers say they want from their agent. Then these are the key things that they say are most important things to buyers. Well, if I'm creating a value proposition to a group of people, it would make sense to create a value proposition off of the things that when that group of people are surveyed, they say are most important to them.
That's good stuff.
That makes sense to me.
Good stuff.
So you have this, all four of these resources plus all of this, I sent to Dara, and Dara will get it out to you. So that you'll have. So, and that should help you in that creating, either shoring up, changing, altering, or creating a buyer value proposition. Go here in a minute.
I'm not a fear monger, but my biggest thing that we're gonna be challenged with is new construction. So, because we're already sort of being challenged with that they didn't want to pay us. So I think that educating us on, you have a lot of knowledge on new construction, how we can get through to that.
My experience with new construction is that the co-op agent was was part of the lifeblood of the business. I mean, we always were co-op friendly, and there are a lot of builders out there that are co-op friendly, and I don't think that will change. I don't think, because the agent controls a lot of the buyer's perception, thoughts, and activities, and what they, what's, especially builders that they have inventory is not on a portal or MLS, we still depend on the agent. So I don't see that changing.
Okay.
And look, if you have a builder or an agent that represents the builder that's not co-op friendly, this isn't going to change that. They already weren't co-op friendly.
Right.
I think if they were co-op friendly, they're going to continue to be co-op friendly.
Right.
I don't think any builder doesn't know that they don't have to pay a commission. And what we saw during the pandemic and limited inventory was that some builders did away with buyer agent compensation, or knocked it down to 1%. And then we also saw the antithesis of that when we were in the recession and we had nothing but inventory, the 14 months of inventory. We saw builders offering 5-6% commission
New
because,
cars.
yeah,
Right.
because they needed to get people in the door. So it's going to be market driven, I think, for the builder side more than anything else.
Yes.
Jason, help me think through a value proposition in the sense of, so, if, I can represent my buyers on a $300,000 house in recent past, it's 2.5%, 2%, 3%, something like that. So it's my quote value, if you will, or my paycheck is constantly changing. So how do I think about putting a number on the value that I provide? I know what I do. I know, all that stuff is going to be really helpful, but everybody wants to know what's your fee that goes along with that. And I don't even know how to think about that. So does that make sense?
Yes. So when you think about, when you think about, you can start with just straight man hours. it's time. It takes time to represent a buyer and find property, negotiate, make offers, negotiate, a contract to close. Perhaps that one falls through, you go to another one. There's just actual time. And then you get into expertise and how you're going to help that buyer to navigate this very complex, volatile, very high dollar transaction. It's a very infrequent usually for most people, so it's not something that's familiar to them. And if they've done it sometime in the past, probably many of the rules have changed from the times that they did it before until now. And you need to come up with, and I think this would be a great thing to mastermind in this community with on what are some of the, I'm a fan of, what are some of the mistakes a buyer could make that would cost them money? So, and if you can keep them from making those mistakes, then how much money could you save them by them working with you instead of just how much money does it cost them to hire you? And so, what are some of the things that, not to make this a full mastermind, but just right off the cuff, what are a few things that could cost a buyer money if they do them improperly?
An inspection.
Litigation.
Litigation,
Not using a good inspector, like using their uncle, somebody.
A poor inspector could miss some things that could cost thousands. Just right off the bat, what about establishing value on what to offer?
Mhm.
So if you go and you look at all of your transactions for the last 12 months and you see that, man, I'm actually a 94% original list to sale price on my buyers, and the average is 96. But I'm 94, my average is 94. So what percentage difference is that off the bat? Two, right off the bat. So the average is 96% list to sale price. The people who choose to work with me, my average is 94%. I'm a good negotiator, and I help you to establish the value on the property that you're going to write an offer on. And I do my best to make sure that you don't overpay for that house. And so that is a potential high cost thing to them that they would just unknowingly walk into. They would unknowingly walk into that and pay 99%. Like, I'm gonna negotiate $3,000 off of that $300,000 house and feel good about it, when I could have negotiated 12,000. They don't even know until you tell them that this is the average and this is my average and this is how I can save you money. They don't even know that until you tell them that. And they would unknowingly walk in and pay full price or close to full price. And look, we may be in a full price environment too. I'm not telling you that we're in a highly negotiable marketplace. I'm not delusional in thinking that we're in a 20,000 off for everything market, because we're not. But what I'm saying is that those are the key points that you can look at in the marketplace. And if you don't have representation, me representing you, you might make this costly mistake. I can help you.
I thought of another one, how much earnest money, depending on the market.
How much earned money?
And also how to stay in compliance to not lose that earnest money.
Yes, so the different ways that people's earnest money can get in jeopardy if they don't get the right numbers and put contingencies in place that are long enough for due diligence, long enough for financing or appraisal or whatever those things are, right? Yeah. So those are the things I think you need to be thinking through is what are some of the potential mistakes that people make that cost them a lot of money? How do you, as the professional, help them to avoid those mistakes? And by doing that, you're earning the commission that you're charging. Does that help you?
It helps me a lot. I'm still struggling with how to think about a dollar value. How do you, because commissions, what I've made has varied so much. And so do I average that? Then I go, okay, this is what it's gonna.
Are you talking about a percentage, a flat fee? Are you talking about?
I don't know what I'm talking about. I guess I'm just talking about, I don't even know how to put a value. You know, lawyers are gonna charge you based on their experience and, you know, they're gonna charge you a certain amount an hour, billable hour. Same with accountants, things like that. So there's a commonality in that the longer you're in it, the more you value service, but it's all in the same kind of fence. the fence seems like it's been blown out, so to speak, and I'm not really sure of how to even think about that.
Yeah, so I'll tell you that, the current business practice, the current commonly accepted practice is this, the seller pays a commission to the listing broker, offers cooperative compensation to the buyer's broker. That's how your fee is established. That is going to continue for some time, and it will transition between now and the time that anything is implemented where it's written in stone. So I think that this is something that will evolve. You don't have to solve for this today. You need to be thinking about your value proposition, what is your value and what you should charge. I would start by saying, what have you been charging? And what have you been earning? And are the services you provide worth that? Or are they worth more or less? And I would say to you that the 3% that we have been, and I'm not telling you that that's an industry standard, I'm not setting a price or whatever, but actually 2.7% is the average of commission in this market center. And it varies between somewhere around 2.7, 2.8, 2.85, 2.65, depending on the market center. Somewhere in that range, I believe is a fair charge for those services. So.
So can I kind of to add on to that, because Anna yesterday, and this stopped me if I misunderstood what she said. She said something about an itemized list, like, okay, the transaction coordinator
menu.
would be,
Commission.
and then, so like, I'm thinking, okay, what would I charge to, if they just wanted me to write the contract? So like, and is that what you were kind of saying? Like, what would you charge, like, if you had to give them an itemized list? So like, what would you charge?
I haven't thought through an itemized list, and I don't disagree with that strategy. That's a fine strategy. I think that that's one of the things that will develop through these conversations. What I would ask the room is, has anyone in here ever had someone that you represented where you just were a transaction agent for them, where they found the house, or you were doing a listing presentation and the person said, well, my neighbor might buy the house, and you said, okay, well, if you do that, then I will charge this. I'll take care of the ministerial duties. I won't represent you. Everybody will be a customer. So you don't have the liability of client representation, but you're taking care of handling all the details of the transaction. Anybody ever had that?
Yes.
What'd you charge?
I charged $500 and I've charged up to 1%.
So 1%.
I think mine was 500 too, and it was basically putting two people together that are already made a decision that they were gonna buy and sell and all that good stuff. And it was just basically helping with the paperwork and everything.
And I would tell you that that's probably closer to a 1% thing, in my own opinion.
I agree.
My own opinion is.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that happens between contract to close. And that is the most volatile segment of any real estate transaction, is contract to close. And it's the place where you have the highest emotions, the most potential challenges. And so to say that everything outside of that is worth 2% and everything inside, like, that's just, I think 1% is a starting place for that. Maybe you can pick apart some of those little things and create a menu of services. I think that we don't need to overcomplicate it unless we have to overcomplicate it. I think we should simplify it if we can, and if we need to get more complicated, we can.
Yeah, Jason, do we have a general idea of what a real estate lawyer would charge to do that type of transaction? That's a Tiffany question.
It was the
And
same,
so-
the same charge.
So to do that type of thing is, you're talking about an attorney doing
Oh.
transaction management.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
I just want to make sure that we all understand this correctly too. So the settlement, if it goes through,
I'm sorry, before we switch gears, I thought you had a comment to his question. So do you have a comment to his
I
question?
don't.
Okay, stand by one minute. So, the fee, does anybody have a charge where you've had an attorney handle transaction management?
Not transaction management, but the attorney that's handling my mom's estate's $400 an hour.
There you go.
Bill, about 15 minutes.
Yeah. In 15 minutes.
And a $2,000 retainer before he'll even take it on.
And how many hours do you devote generally to a real estate transaction as an agent?
Well, if you go by statistics, it's 21.5 hours for buyer, 7.5 hours for seller.
$8,600, pretty close to 3% of 300,000.
Yeah.
Okay,
I apologize. I thought the Tiffany question was the answer to that
no,
question.
I'm.
So if this goes through, sellers can still, it's not that they're disqualified from paying any buyer's commissions, right? It's just more of their decision and they're gonna try to negotiate that more. Is that, am I understanding that correctly? Like,
So back to what this is and what the proposed settlement is that there can be no offer or advertisement of cooperative compensation to the buyer's agent on the MLS.
Right.
Now, NAR is very, very, very specific about the fact that they do not agree with that. And I'm gonna take you to this NAR fact sheet, which you, I think you probably all have, but I'm gonna read number 18 for you. And I want you to hear NAR's words on this. Why was prohibiting the publication of compensation offers in the MLS part of the settlement? While NAR has long maintained and continue to believe that cooperative compensation and NAR's current policies are a good thing that benefits buyers and sellers. We also acknowledge that continuing to litigate would have hurt members and their small businesses, so we have agreed to put that in place, to put in place a new rule prohibiting offers of compensation on the MLS. NAR does not believe that's a good move. They believe the current policy of being able to offer cooperative compensation on the MLS is good. It is a good practice that does not harm buyers and sellers. It's helpful to them. But it's more important for them to have settled this and them putting faith in the agent community to be able to innovate and get around that. And to where that practice will will most likely live on. There's just going to be a different method by which that is communicated, and it will be much more transparent and open to the players who's paying what.
If you look at closing costs of a loan, they're around 3.5%, 2.5% to 3.5% depending. And we negotiate for that all the time. We have buyers who can't or won't bring closing costs, and we negotiate for that all the time. This is just a different type of closing cost that we're negotiating for. I do want everybody to know that there are two special stipulations, one specifically for VA, one for non-VA clients. It's SS 619 and SS 620, that both are buyer requesting compensation from the seller, or not buyer requesting compensation for their buyer's agent from the seller. So while we can get kind of tied down in all of this or bogged down in all of this, the reality is it's just going to be negotiating something else that is right in line with what we're already negotiating. It's always going to come down to what the seller nets and taking the best offer. And so this is just another opportunity for us to prove our worth, quite frankly.
And there are going to be, I totally agree with you, there are going to be sellers who you're gonna be at a kitchen table and they're gonna say, I don't have to pay that buyer commission anymore. So I don't wanna pay for that buyer's agent. At which point in time, you're just gonna do a consultation with that person. And it's all about how do you best position their house in the marketplace to get them the most money? Because it is about the seller net. And if the majority of homes in their marketplace are offering cooperative compensation, the ones that have closed did offer cooperative compensation and they choose not to, then they're putting themselves in a situation, I want you to hear this really carefully, real closely, where the buyer may choose not to see their property, or a buyer may choose not to pursue their property because it will increase their cost to close if you're not offering to cover that cost for them. Same thing is with closing costs, where if the majority of these properties had offered some seller concession at closing, but you are adamant that you're not going to, then they may choose to look at or make an offer on a different property that is offering that. You cannot say, please do not say, that if you don't offer a commission, agents won't show your house. That's part of why we got into this to begin with. And so I just want you to be very, very specific when you're consulting with a seller and helping them to make the decision to offer cooperative compensation or not, that if you frame that they will have limited exposure at all, which I believe they will, It needs to be that the buyer would choose not to pursue your property or to view your property because you're not offering to pay them. That's,
Put it on the buyer.
That's where the BBA comes in. It's so critical.
Right.
it is critical to have that buyer's brokerage agreement, and that buyer's brokerage agreement, I'll come to me next. The buyer brokerage agreement, just so you know, like, it's now required that it has to be in writing before you show the first house. It's like, okay, well, we have this concept of buyer's brokerage agreements where we're like, we always get a buyer's brokerage agreement signed. Well, yes, you do, but a lot of times it's whenever you're preparing the offer that you're getting that signed because you want to be in compliance and get a DA, okay? So, but this is going to have to pull that back to the initial consultation to where you're getting that buyer's brokerage agreement signed with compensation included in that at the consultation, not at, when you're preparing the offer. And it's also been said, well, what about when we get a sign call or a Zillow call or a lead? And many times I meet that person at the house and I give them one freebie, I show them the house, then I have a consultation, we sign the agreement. Well, you may, and these are part of the things that are all going to evolve, we'll see. Because right now that rule isn't in place. You go drive to the Zillow call and do your practice, like whatever. Then you just need to have a buyer consultation, get the buyer brokerage signed immediately after that. But right now, there isn't the rule that it has to be before you crack the first door. So there may be a situation where you're sitting in the driveway of the house you met them at, and you say, before I show you this house, it's the law that I have to have this signed. Let me go over this with you so you know what you're signing. But this is only for this one house. And so I will show you this house, but we have to have this signed. I'll show you that house. Then we'll have a consultation where we'll talk about all the services and things that I will provide and do for you. And then we'll talk about doing one that covers a period of time as opposed to only one property. I'm sorry, let me go here and then.
I don't know if I should be concerned about this or not, but, if, sellers, do insist that they don't want to pay the commission on the buyer side. Well, the buyers, obviously, like you said, will go to other homes that do have that compensation.
Yes.
Or try and negotiate the house price down, which would drive other homes down around it.
I don't see how this drives price down.
Yeah.
I don't see how this drives price down because of the simple economics of supply and demand in our marketplace.
Yeah.
Is that there are going to be buyers that if a seller isn't offering that, then they may want to negotiate that, but there are gonna be plenty of sellers that are offering it. And if the circumstances are such to where there isn't anything else and the buyer wants it and they have the means to buy it, they're gonna pay the fee and buy it. But I don't see how this brings price down.
You're basically just saying date that for just one day. The BBA.
I'm saying that is not an issue right now. So I would not even recommend that.
No, I'm just
right
saying if it.
I'm thinking,
Yeah.
maybe one of the ways we solve for that. And again, this is one of those things where it's probably not a great thing for us to be talking about, but I'm just showing you how there could be potential solutions like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do now? Like, this is what I do. I meet them at the house and I show them one house and then I do this and then I do like, I'm never, like, this guy's falling, I'm out of business. It's like, no, but what if you just did like specific special stipulations? This is for this one property only, And then you show the one property, if they don't like it, they don't like you, you don't like them, you don't wanna move forward, you're done.
I've had to do that a lot of times when people, or they don't know what it is and they're afraid. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but we have to do it. This is the law, because it says it.
And if you're showing a for sale by owner, you're doing an authorization to show unlisted property that talks about commission already. So, if you're showing an unlisted property, you're doing the authorization to show unlisted property, you're having that conversation already. So a lot of these are conversations we've already been having. We're just shifting some of the scenarios and the way we say it. Were you?
Yes, I was. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
In the frenzy, over the weekend to find some information, I saw a lot of negative comments about NAR. We still see value in NAR, right?
I'm gonna give you my.
Pause.
Go up the camera.
Not as much as we used.
I'll be super open about this. I don't have a problem in the world giving my opinion on that. There are two main things that I believe we absolutely need a trade organization for. And NAR has made some mistakes. So, NAR has made some mistakes in how they've handled this lawsuit and how they've handled some of the representation of us as agents at the ground level. And I'm disappointed in them and how they've done some of those things, and they've had a lot of turnover in the executive team. They've had some scandalous stuff going on. I mean, it's just, they got some egg on their face right now, and I think they've messed some things up. Now, two main things that we need a trade organization for that I think we cannot go away from the Association of Realtors unless there is a viable option that's better that has these things. First is a code of ethics and a method by which you police that. So, Georgia Real Estate Commission, not good enough. Like, they have their rules and you can have a complaint filed and 2 years later, you'll get investigated and, you know, whatever. That's not a vehicle to keep ethics in our industry. The code of ethics, when you are working with a realtor, you can file an ethic grievance, and then that will be brought before a board, and they have the power to put in place consequences if you've done something wrong and violated the code of ethics. We have to have that. Any large trade any large trade like this needs a trade organization that has some type of opt-in, like, I believe we need to abide by these, and I'm willing to be held accountable to those. Second thing, probably even more important, certainly equally as important, is we have to have a political action committee. So many of you who, like, you get your board dues and you're like, RPAC, nah, like, pay that, like, pay RPAC.
Hey, Armin.
Because in Washington, you have to have a seat at the table. And there are very, very powerful organizations and groups of people that want to dismantle this industry in which you earn your living in. And they are at the table in Washington. And if you don't have a seat at the table, you are on the menu and you will be eaten. And so we have to have a strong political action committee in Washington that is lobbying, fighting on our behalf in our industry. So until there's a trade organization, not one that's just like, NAR sucks and come, you know, join ours thing, which there is a pretty big one that's beginning to gain some traction. That's a competitor trade organization and is looking to get people from NAR to their thing. And unless they have very, very strong code of ethics and enforcement of that and a political action committee, so I know that they are fighting for us in Capitol Hill, I'm staying in NAR. Doesn't mean I'm not disappointed.
Back to her scenario she mentioned, come mid-June, if we do feel like, okay, we got to lead off Zillow or whatever that scenario is it the BBA we're having them sign, or is it some other form, or do we know yet?
So we're speculating, and
Okay.
again, I brought you down this path, so I'll follow it with you. I opened that conversation, but we don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. That, I promise you that Seth Weisman and the Forms Committee are going to create forms that will conform to and comply with whatever the new rules are and equip us with the tools to do business the way we need to do business post mid-July.
Can I ask you a second question?
Yes.
I know you said just a few minutes ago, you don't feel like the settlement is going to bring down prices. I was talking with an agent the other day, and her perspective was that if you have a seller who says that they're not going to pay a commission to the buyer side, she said, then I'm going to be telling them, she said, well, if you don't pay a commission, you might have to come down on your price then to make it more affordable for the buyer to pursue this as, you know, option for them. But do you still think it's not gonna really have an impact there?
100% an opinion. It's just an opinion.
And, okay,
And so if anyone tells you they know what's gonna happen, they're lying to you, because no one does. And how is the value of a property established?
helps. What the market will allow.
So supply and demand, really, it is what one person is willing to sell something for and what one person is willing to buy something for establishes that value. Comps, they establish value and risk management for a lender that would want either validating what these two people believe is true and or giving risk assessment to a lender who's about to lend a pile of money on this transaction. And so, when you think about that and you think about 2.4 months supply of inventory and 4.7 million transactions in the country, and especially in the Southeast and especially in our area, do you think that the scenario exists right now where people are gonna be just dropping prices in an attempt to get buyers to buy their houses?
And part B of that, if you don't mind, you know, she said that and I'm thinking, well, that does sound somewhat reasonable. But then I got thinking about it. I mean, is this an instance where if you tell a seller, a potential seller that, is that actually like something they could litigate against you because you're like trying to, I don't know if the word is price fix or, maybe you know the word I'm thinking of, is that tending into a very dangerous territory where you're trying to say it's, you know, tit for tat, if you do this, then you gotta reduce your price, I don't know. Is that something that you would just, it sounds like you already are saying, don't
Right
do
now,
that.
I've thought about this for a while, and, my thought is that the buyer and the lender put forth money so that the buyer can purchase the home. And if they have to put less money because the buyer needs to pay his agent, the money's still going to the same place at the end of the day. Whether the seller's paying it or the buyer's not having to pay it, the money's all going to the same place. So even if the home comes down a little bit, the money is still going to the same place. And
I don't disagree with you, and here's what I'm telling you. In our very, very competitive marketplace today, with lower inventory, and right now, if you have a properly priced, well-conditioned house, it will sell in a very reasonable amount of time, and sometimes with multiple offers and strong offers. In today's marketplace, I don't see that having that type of an impact. If we all of a sudden get into 6-7 months supply of inventory, then what's gonna happen is the overall list to sale price, original list to sale price, there's going to be a gap. You can look back at 2020, 21, 22, midway 22, end of 22 to 23, and we were 100, 101, 100.15, 102% original list to sale price. Insane. People were like, we won't do a thing, we won't do this, we'll buy all of our stuff, we will, no closing costs, no nothing, and the buyer was paying everything.
Their agents advertising, we'll have the buyers, pay the buyer's agent commission, you only have to pay half the commission.
Yes.
They're all on the radio like every.
Yes, all of that. And so there was just gonna be, it's going to be a marketplace driven thing because that is in a rapidly appreciating, low inventory, high demand marketplace. And so that's always gonna give you pricing support. Regardless of the rule change or who pays what. If we find ourselves in a high inventory, low demand marketplace, that is going to lean itself to soft pricing. I don't know, a devaluation certainly will be in a lower appreciation marketplace because of that. We already are because of interest rates. But all those things are just, all the factors make this thing. What's it gonna look like? I don't know. But you're gonna know when we get there, you're gonna be able to give good consultation to your buyers and sellers. You're gonna help them navigate those current conditions as they exist when they are transacting.
Well, from a pricing standpoint, you can't really do one for one. So $12,000 commission.
Former appraiser.
$12,000 reduction in price, it's not going to correlate that way. And the reason why it's not is because understand that cash up front and cash on a mortgage are two different things and two different hurdles. So $12,000 current interest rates is gonna be right around $60 difference in house payment. So $12,000, $60. It's very easy for a buyer to stomach $60 a month as opposed to $12,000 up front. So merely the seller reducing the price, it can't be one for one. If they were to try to incentivize that buyer, it would actually they would have to overshoot what they would have paid in a buyer commission.
Great point. Did everybody understand?
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a good
Great
point.
point.
No, I didn't understand that. Sorry.
Okay, no, thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. If-
He always talks over my head, so.
This guy's like super smart.
Yeah.
He talked over my head too. So the thing is, he was saying is, and if I get it wrong in the interpretation, please let me know, is that if you go and say a buyer has to pay $12,000 out of pocket for something, well, that $12,000, if they were to include it in the mortgage, then he's saying it's $60 a month. Where if you take it off of the price of the house, then it gives them the $60 a month, but it doesn't give them $12,000 to be able to come write a check. So, is that, and I said it worse than you said it, but I said it in a different way. To where, like, reducing the price just reduces their monthly payment. It doesn't put $12,000 in their pocket to be able to write a check.
It's just like getting closing costs. It's better to someone who's cash short
Yes,
than getting a $10,000 reduction.
reduction in price,
Okay,
right.
so that's what
Because
he's saying.
you can bring the price down all day long, but if the buyer doesn't have the cash to pay the
I should have
closing
said
costs.
it that
I
way.
know, but then, Mr. Appraiser, what if you build that cost in there and it doesn't appraise?
Well, then we're right back to where we are all the time, because we have buyer
Then,
fees
I
right
know,
now.
I'm just asking you, when.
What
I know that
happens
we
if,
have that right now.
yeah, I mean, we're back in the same place that we are anytime that something doesn't appraise.
But, okay, then seller's not gonna pay the closing costs, but then what happens if the buyer is now responsible for that amount and it doesn't appraise and the buyer doesn't have that money because they're using all their down payment?
Okay, so let's say we're in today's world, the buyer asks for $9,000 in closing costs, the seller agrees to it, and it doesn't appraise. What happens now?
We renegotiate,
What if the buyer doesn't have the money?
then the seller better pay.
Yeah,
But-
like, we're just back in the same
I know.
place. Like, I mean,
We have to be strong negotiators, that's what I'm.
Here's
that's
what I
what
want
I'm-
you to know. You already have all the skills you need to take care of this changing marketplace.
Right, we do.
You're just going to have to apply them to this changing scenario. We've, wax on, wax off, sand the floor, paint the fence, like you've been doing that.
Sure.
You're just gonna have a different scenario that you're gonna use that particular skill for. But we've already been doing the things that we're going to have to do to take care of these new circumstances.
So the way it's laid out, as I understand it, we won't be able, as listing agents, to put a commission amount, there won't be a blank for it on the FMLS. But I guess we could, I want to get your perspective, put it in the remarks, maybe private, no, we can't do that.
You
Can't do
cannot,
it.
what it did say, which is interesting, is you can offer a concession to the buyer that is equal to the amount that they would have to pay their broker.
Okay.
And then at closing, the buyer could use that concession to pay their broker.
Okay.
But they also said that you can market that on your own website.
You can mark it on your own
Or on
website. And
KWLS.
KW has already, and Mark Willis on Monday was having the conversation with us in the leadership teams that there's never been a better time to own your own technology.
Yep.
We're one of two firms left in the industry that owns our own technology. Us and Redfin, we're the only companies left that own our own technology.
Mhm.
Never been a better time to own our own technology, to have a vehicle like KWLS where we can, by rule on this settlement, advertise cooperative compensation through our KWLS. How that plays out, I don't know.
I just want to say, I've got to go, but I do want to say, on Tuesday, so next Tuesday, from 1 to 4, we're going to be having a watch party in here for Value Squared, which is a course given by Gary Keller and Jay Papazon. It's all about presenting your value as a buyer representative.
Lots to attend.
I would strongly encourage everybody to attend. I will be in here taking notes, so I think it's going to be very valuable, especially as we transition into this new arena.
What day was that again?
It's the 26th, so next Tuesday from 1 to 4.
So, I'm gonna just go ahead and conclude there. I'm gonna stick around. If you have something specific, then I'm happy to have that conversation. I encourage you to have a very proper perspective on this, to be educated about what it is, to not tune into sources and that are going to feed you junk. Certainly do not repeat junk. And do the things you need to be doing right now and don't play the what if game Because remember the no parking, like there are many attractive parking spots on the road to success, no parking. Do not do that, keep moving and just tune into us, we'll keep you posted, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will survive.
Oh, they just. Yeah, that makes sense. It's like these.
You can ask him right away.
You said, after.
You're saying the price of the home buying and stuff might go down. They're not. They should still be paying. You're just moving.
I have.
It's a show.
I am paying for your buyers
Because of that.
because of the fact that they're not. And it sounded to me in our conversation that he wanted to have the moves in inspections, it's like he wanted the section inspected, he wanted all that kind of stuff inspected. I would 100% reach out to him because, I mean, you can't do a septic inspection in 48 hours.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know if he's trying to see if he wants to. Yeah.
And so as a listener, you're gonna have to have, if the seller chooses to pay
I've done
a
that
cooperative
before out of
commission,
buyers
you're
before.
gonna have seller
Where
language in your listing
We did the
agreement that says,
inspection, they did the
if the buyer
inspection,
comes to
I
represented,
actually
then the commission.
FaceTimed with the inspector. Anything that he wanted to show him, we showed him and all that kind of stuff. And that's usually what I tell my buyers anyway, is like usually the last half hour.
And we offer 3% share,
And then
of
the
buyer
last half hour, he gets a
if the
picture.
buyer comes is not represented and work with us to
I've
represent
had
you.
to,
then you can buy it.
I've done FaceTime
And so,
in that.
because just because there's not a picture on the website doesn't mean there's not work. We just won't be
I guess
presented by.
I would just hate to
But
see
now
him
we have a
get here,
responsibility
and then
our-
he's got all these million questions.
that the buyer division-
You don't have answers to, because you haven't had.
It's just-
You haven't had, you know, the feedback, you haven't had, you know, and so I would definitely encourage that conversation.
Sorry, I asked so many questions. Really good about it.
Those
So
type
in the
of people
scenario where I think
that they have a
these
lot
are
of
legendary, I
experience
think,
and
typical scenario,
that,
commission for.
So I just wanted to be sure.
they know more than.
So just now.
But I will still reach out.
The only thing I would just say is, hey, or just like,
But say it's not, we got it all.
and they kind of
Negotiate, but have any best ways.
I just want to make sure you have brought to my attention, you were
Are you
concerned about
offering
this,
a
you were concerned about this,
sounds
you were concerned about
like a
this. Yes, the only thing that I want to make sure is that we get all those questions answered and.
Good to do that, but any offer that I put in place is going to be, the commission's gonna be getting offer.
Inspectors,
because I got-
and they are not. You know, such a.
When I was like, I can't believe this.
So if you
So I put in an offer, our teacher's commission shall be.
either we need to have it scheduled the same
We'll be
day.
okay, but now put them to be the same.
Have it all scheduled that same day.
Yeah.
Have that second day be done that day. Have the HVAC systems out that day.
Make sure we have the right mechanisms by which we can inquire and also make sure.
I just know in
By
our
the way, I thought that was
conversations
kind of
that
silly, actually, back then.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be here negotiating. They're negotiating on your own behalf.
Well, here's the thing with that.
Yes.
It's a little different than the way you described it. The rule is.
I would rather have it.
Another agent to reduce
So I know they push back, but at least if you have it.
The code of ethics,
Yeah.
the code of ethics.
And they come back.
That I cannot come to you and say, to make me deal work, you take 1%.
I think too, what it
I asked that.
will
So it's actually.
show your strength with the knowledge that
this
the rapport that we kind of built.
Right.
I want, I heard the concern over these things, and I just want to make sure we're gonna be addressing it.
Yeah, and that will also remove the price liability on my end.
Absolutely. You brought it up before, you brought it up. They dismissed it.
Now, if I think they want to, just have the inspector look at it, so if it's, when I go through all those questions, they still do that, they just want to do it, so they.
Yeah.
Cooperative
So-
competition.
If the inspector says, oh man, you've got to get this.
Before it gets taken out.
You might have to extend due diligence,
Well, then that's, I mean, if that's completely the buyer, the seller.
but I'm not even gonna mention that, I'm gonna ask them all these questions. And then if you do need more due diligence, that's.
I know you
And
don't.
then the seller's gotta be willing to give it to them, and if not, they've gotta be either willing to terminate or do it, ask for whatever they're gonna ask for in that next day or whatever. Whatever time's left.
Yeah,
It really is.
and the seller actually
There's like.
was resistant when I even mentioned the septic.
Or anybody else in your life. But I want you to know that that's okay. Like, that's what we're here for, and that's what we're all in for. Anybody, absolutely, anybody, even Mr. Mayor's boss.
I guess you guys could put put my get up in the closet for if ever I come and,
Yeah.
and need to get dressed up for y'all.
Yep. Mr. Jason Bond, this is Nasser.
Hey,
He's one of our newer agents.
Nice to meet you. I knew you were an unfamiliar face back here, so I'm glad we got.
Yeah, yeah.
Brandon, so you don't have to relearn any of this stuff, you're just gonna learn it all for the first time, the right way.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
Good, well, thank you. You came at a good time.
Perfect, so I'll get with Jared and David,
Sure.
and I'll get with you about what time we can all meet and just kind of have a sit down with everything, okay? Okay. I'm giving you a hug. Oh, well, do you need anything right now? Do you need anything today? Okay, are you good?
I'm just waiting for the class to start.
Yeah, so it's on Zoom, so you'll have to log in. Do you want me to show you?
And then I think I tried.
So what is that other one? Is that other one on Zoom too, or is that here?
Yes.
No, that's here. Okay, so,
Then maybe both of them.
so two. See, I think this one, let me find out.
Okay.
Let me find out where that one is.
Sure.
That one might be in here or it might be in the resource room.
Okay.
Hang on one second.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you, like, don't overlook the special steps and the special step index, in the GAR forms, because anytime that you're writing a special step, and it's not one of those, that you didn't have an attorney write it, you're leaving yourself and your client open the line.
Have an attorney address.
What's that?
Have an attorney kind of help you out through something.
Yeah.
But it's not on the index.
Yeah.
Do you think cold calling people on Reddit is a good idea?
As long as you're TCPA compliant.
Not on, you mean when they're not on the do not call list, right? As long as they're not on the do not call list.
As long as you're scrubbing that list.
I will.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna try and do. That's my next venture, and I also want to hold an open house for someone at some point. I haven't done that yet, but I'd like to.
Open house is a good method of lead gen right now, for sure.
No, we. Okay, so. Didn't grab myself anyway.
So that 231, that's also on Zoom. It's another Max coaching one.
Okay.
So you can hang out here and watch it. You can go home and watch it, whatever you would like to do, but I can show you how to get on it if you want.
Okay, that's
Yeah, let's
great.
pull up your computer.
Right, my stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, you're fine, I'm just showing him how to. So just go online to that. Sure. awng.online.com. Mhm. Yep. Like, put that in there. Continue,
I pictured in my mind what.
do the first. Okay, install.
phone, and then fax machines where you have brain stuff everywhere. If you ever done that book.
We just say continue. Yeah.
You know, you put it in the back.
So it looks like we have to install it, so hit install.
So then as a buyer, they go take copies of the back books.
Trying to install our software. Okay, so it looks like use password, so you're probably just gonna have you log in to install it.
So password.
So that's gonna be your computer password.
I was in a printing business before this, and we used to print some of those real estate books. Was that right? Back then, they had. And we kept getting.
Perfect, so we're gonna let it install.
Hi, Nasser, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
We are learning how to look up the Zoom for the maps. code.
Oh, okay, awesome. You found it?
We're downloading.
And I thought it was a mistake, you know, that's fine. You know, that's what I said, if that's what you were offering, I was kind of thinking. Make this teach the room. I know, right? That was my younger days, you know.
Perfect, click close.
That was too hard to last week. But, yeah, you know,